Back in 2022, musician and filmmaker Nick Kelly decided to cycle from Dublin to Somerset in England, carrying his guitar and other essentials on his back, playing gigs in towns along the way with his bandmate and travel companion Sean Millar. He also brought a cameraman along with him to capture the journey, resulting in the creation of a documentary with a focus on sustainability. I'm joined now by the pair to discuss the song Cycle ahead of its screening at Esker Arts this week as part of Men's Health Week. Thank you both for taking time out of your busy screening schedule to speak with me this evening.
Thanks, Zoe. Thanks very much. It's lovely to be talking to you.
Now, Nick, I'm going to come to you first. Where did the idea for the documentary come from?
Well, it started as a music project inspired by me hearing this thing about Coldplay cancelling a world tour because they couldn't justify the carbon footprint of the jets. And then I looked into it and I discovered that 80% of the carbon footprint of every live music event, every festival, and in fact probably every film festival as well, is transport. So I had this kind of moment of thinking. I also did take my bicycle to a gig where I was required to sing one song in the Three Arena. And I realised actually the way I make music, and probably Sean makes music as well at the moment, you don't need a big entourage. You just need a bag to put your pedal and your shirt in and something to carry your guitar. So that sort of became the seed of the idea of trying to cycle to Glastonbury. And then I brought a cameraman on my other bicycle to sort of document it. And then Sean separately was travelling by bus. And then, so when we got back, we looked at the footage and we thought, you know what, this actually might be a film.
Yeah. And Sean, how did you come to getting involved in this then?
Well, our band, Dogs, originally it was a tour, was what we were doing. He won't admit this, but a huge amount of this was a plan for Nick to be able to get to play at Glastonbury, which had been his lifelong dream. But that was part of it. And I suppose, I always feel that I have to point this out. I mean, although I'm hugely involved with the film and all that kind of stuff, Nick made the documentary and it's very much his work. Film is not my area of work, and obviously I'm in the film really a lot and I talk a lot in it. But in terms of actually making the piece,
yes.
I mean, I was really impressed when we were doing it that Nick had the foresight of bringing a cameraman with us on our journey, and that proved to be an incredibly foresighted thing to do.
So as you said, it came from an environmental focus. That's where kind of the idea for it came from, was looking into that. But it also tackles other themes like, male friendship, ageing, music, and of course, cycling as well.
Yeah, I mean, the cycling, I have to say, if anybody who's a really avid and expert cyclist goes to our film, they're in terrible, terrible disappointment, because I cycle very slowly and in considerable discomfort a lot of the time. I mean, I think what happened, I've made quite a few films, but this is the first documentary I've made. And one of the things that I really realised in the process is that the thing changes from where you start out. So it did start out as an environmental thing, but then it became clear to me that my birthday, my 60th birthday, was going to fall on the Friday of Glastonbury when we were playing it.
Okay.
And that was a really significant birthday for me, apart from it just being a big number, because my late father had died at the age of 59. And I think subconsciously, when you are about to overtake them, or you hope you're going to overtake them, it's quite a weird feeling. So that started to become a really big part of the journey. And my father was, a politician, and there was a lot of footage of him when I was growing up. He was on the TV all the time. So I kind of knew that element was something that was there. And then I suppose also, probably for both myself and Sean, when we were in our 20s, we made quite a spirited attempt to be rock stars and, we played big gigs, and there's footage of some of that. But then, it's a Sunday afternoon in Carmarthen and you're playing to 27 bewildered Welsh people. And so I think the whole thing of your mortality and also your sort of your artistic worth, especially as you get older, even as a human being, what that's like. So that started to be a big part of the film as well, I think.
I think sustainability in general is actually a sort of strong theme throughout the film, because both myself and Nick, as independent artists putting out stuff, sustainability has been a very close to our hearts for a very long time, because, just basically seeing, is it even sustainable to be a working artist? Is it sustainable to put out records and all that? And we're both very interested in, I suppose, basically environmental stuff and environmental politics even, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I started cycling years ago. I live right in the city centre in Dublin, and one day I was dropping my children to school. This is a long time ago. I was in my 30s, and I was sitting in a queue of cars, and we each had, in the cars looking ahead of me, each had one child in that car.
Yeah.
And I was travelling 1 mile, to drop my child to school. I just thought, this is absolutely ridiculous. This chain of cars that it doesn't even get you quickly. It's just, just join this queue. So that was for me when I started dropping with Faith, my first child, her to school on the bike. I started doing things like that. I do things like if I was doing community work for a week, with a group and somewhere in Dublin, I'd drop all the instruments over on the first day and then cycle in all the other days and all that kind of stuff, So, and Nick cycles everywhere.
Slowly and in a sort of sedate way. But
but you do it nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I really enjoy it. But we, because we both live in the city. First of all, I mean, there's a really practical thing, which is if you set out to get somewhere on your bicycle, you get there at the time you thought you would.
Yeah,
so that becomes a big thing. But I love the way that it makes you interact with your environment. I mean, sometimes your environment might be very wet, and you have to interact with that. But it does. You're not insulated from the world. I started to think all those things joined together. I think that the sustainability of human beings, especially as we get older, and, how do we keep going? And how do we keep being useful and feeling useful? And that felt like, I felt when I looked at the climate change thing, that really felt like a metaphor. An awful lot of people feel useless when it comes to climate change. They're sorting their green and their brown bin out, but they know that India are opening a coal-fired power plant every month. And similarly, as an artist, as you get older, and tragically you are not Bruce Springsteen or even Steven Spielberg, you can also kind of feel what is it really for? And especially when you pass the age which subconsciously you think is the age of a lifetime, because when your parent dies at an age, subconsciously that's what you think you've got. So it started to all really join up, the human sustainability and the environmental piece, I think.
Yeah, one of the themes that kind of emerges, without ruining it for your listeners who all are going to go and see the film, but I suppose one of the themes that opens up during the film is one of the scientists who Nick interviewed for this, is talking about what the future holds. And, and what the future holds really is people doing things on a smaller level, because that is the only sustainable way to do them as we progress forward, in order to have a smaller carbon footprint, we're going to have to be doing things on a smaller level. And I suppose that idea of the value of doing things, small things, the value of doing small things, I suppose, is kind of a theme of the film, and our kind of quixotic.
The humor of doing small things. I mean, that's the other thing. Actually, it's pretty good. It's pretty good fun. I mean, I have to say, some of the fun is definitely, I think, in particular, at my expense. But one of the things, there's a great pleasure in trying a crazy little idea. And we don't, a lot of the time, I think we censor ourselves from trying our crazy little ideas because we think people will laugh at us. And one of the great gifts of getting a bit older is your dignity. I think my dignity is now crumbled away completely. I've almost no dignity left. So I don't mind people laughing at me when I try a crazy thing. So I think, the film, the things we're talking about, they're not unserious things. I mean, I really do believe all those things. But the film itself, I think a lot of people spend a lot of their time laughing uproariously at us, at what we're trying to do. And then also sometimes I think being quite moved, because that's the other thing is, it's life. There's a very humane truth at the heart of the film about what it is to age and what it is to lose people and all of that. So those things are all in there as well.
So as Sean said, you're trying not to give too much away here, but could you give a quick synopsis for anyone who's thinking of heading along to the showing in Esker Arts as to what they can expect from it?
They can expect, the A story will be myself and Sean travelling from the tip of Wales, Pembroke, across Wales and the southwest of England in some discomfort and certain levels of hilarity as we try and play gigs along the way. But there's also quite a lot of stuff about our pasts and our musical pasts, and the Fat Lady Sings, which was my old band, because that starts to become a big part of what it is to be an artist as you go on. So there's there's loads of music in it. So including live music and old footage, and there's
a lovely theme in it about Nick's relationship with his dad as well, which is actually very moving for everybody. It's very moving for me, but when I first saw it, I have to say, and generally for the audience, I think that's a very moving thing. And there's a lot of humour in the film.
And Sean, you mentioned about how the question is posed of what does the future hold? What does the future hold for the song cycle? I know at the moment you're kind of touring where you're screening the film across loads of different locations across the country, but once that run is done, what do you hope is next for it?
I don't know how much your audience will be aware of how difficult it is to make a documentary and get it screened on 20-something screens in art centres around Ireland. It's a huge endeavour to make that even happen, so incredible to the team who put that together. But I think, Nick, am I right that it's going to go to the UK now?
We're really hoping to bring it to the UK. There's another funny old thing about the art form of film is become it's a sort of an endangered thing. The experience, the communal experience of sitting in a darkened room and seeing a thing on a big screen. So we really thought hard about, this film, it started off in quite an unlikely way, and it sort of grew in quite an unlikely way. And we thought when we wanted to release it, let's, instead of, putting it out on the same day for 1 week in a bunch of omniplexes, the smallest screen in omniplexes, and just let it sink or swim, we sort of thought we should do what we would do as musicians. We should make each screening an event, and we should go to the screenings. We should do Q&As afterwards, and we should bring our guitars and we should sing songs. And that's what we've been doing. And the connection with the audience, I'm going to say as a filmmaker, it is a real privilege, because you usually don't get to have that thing where you at a screening, at the end of the screening, you and your audience get to have a conversation about the film. So that way of touring a film, which is quite unusual, a series of quite high profile one-off screenings, that's quite an unusual thing to do, but it's been going really, really well. And we are looking at doing it around the UK.
Great.
Which would be a kind of an amazing thing, because we'd be back on some of those roads.
And Nick, what do you hope the impact of this documentary will be, that people will come along to it, they'll watch it, and what do you want that leaving afterthought to be?
Oh, I want them to be in floods of tears and peals of laughter.
Not asking for much.
First thing. It's a film. It's not cough syrup. And I suppose the other thing which I really want people to feel is empowered. So I'm not saying that everybody has to cycle to Glastonbury. I'm not even saying necessarily I should have to do it. But, everybody's got things they can do. And I think people really underestimate, first of all, they underestimate what's possible for them physically to do, to try. And I think that's really important, to try things. Secondly, I think people really underestimate their power in terms of influencing people. So, you might do a little thing it's just a quirky little thing. And the actual carbon footprint, for example, of me cycling rather than driving across Wales is minuscule, laughably small. But the example that you set, that people catch sight of something and it gives them ideas.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like you pass the ball to them. So I think one of the big things I would love to feel, that people came out of the film feeling a bit inspired and a bit energized and a bit more powerful in themselves. That if two Egypts of our particular age and stage in life can try this thing, maybe there's another thing that they can try. And sooner or later, one of us or loads and loads of us will try things, and some of those things will work, and they won't be the obvious things.
Even though people think that these little things are insignificant, it is all the small changes that we can all be doing that amount to a big change in the end.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and the inspiration, movement begets movement, and oftentimes surprising movement. That's my, you start something, you do this quirky little thing, somebody else picks up that ball and goes in a completely different direction. And you don't know when you're cycling to Wales. Maybe the Bill Gates of environmental science catch a sight of you, and suddenly they have an idea that's the game changer. So I'm quite Buddhist about that.
I was just thinking of something that I saw, which was George Monbiot was being interviewed, and he was being asked about changes, and he was saying, look, everybody thinks that they need to go, fully vegetarian, vegan, all this kind of stuff. And he said, if everybody in the world actually cut down their meat intake to twice a week, he said that would completely change the world environment, so that's quite an easy thing to do.
Yeah, it just shows us that you don't have to go to extremes. It is, as I said, it's just about making small changes in your everyday life.
Yeah, and the other thing I think is the way in which we communicate about climate change, typically is very, very worthy and very, very scary. So it's like, this is a really serious thing. There's to be no laughter. And also it's really difficult, and we've all done a terrible thing, and we're going to really have a difficult time fixing it. And all of that stuff doesn't actually tend to produce human positivity and human action. It tends to make people freeze or deny. So I think even a light-hearted or an emotional or a very personal thing that you just do with a bit of a chutzpah and a bit of a sense of humour, that might actually be a more effective piece of communications around climate change than, very, very worthy stuff. So I think that too, we're allowed to have fun while we try and work out what we're supposed to do without the planet.
Yeah, as you said, if it's all doom and gloom, people they disengage from the conversation, whereas like that, if it's something lighthearted, like the medium of film, they can engage with it and kind of be consuming that message in a way that they don't even realise that they're consuming it, because it is, as you say, quite a serious topic, but you're doing it in a way that it's easy for people to digest. But Nick and Sean, it's been fantastic speaking with the two of you this evening, really fun, and I can only just imagine what that Q&A is going to be like in Esker Arts later this week.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Zoe.
Thanks, Zoe.
Thank you so much for having us.
That's the song cycle being shown at Esker Arts this Wednesday, June 17th, in conjunction with Film Awfully. Up next are your